I'm Jade, I'm 35, and the man I loved humiliated me in front of 100 people, so I ended his entire career without ever raising my voice. I can still feel the sting of the champagne glass slipping in my hand when he said it. Still hear the sound of laughter rolling over the ballroom like a wave I couldn't outrun. My heart didn't just sink, it dropped off a cliff. Because I knew, in that moment, Dean didn't just embarrass me, he ended me, or at least, that's what he thought. It was our firm's annual winter gala, Greystone Consulting's signature event. Formal black tie, hosted at the Andover, one of the priciest hotels in Chicago. Think live jazz, waiters with white gloves, a skyline view, and hundreds of people who had spent the last year trying to outdo one another for a corner office or a whisper of a promotion. It's not just a party. It's a battlefield in gowns and tuxedos. Reputation currency. If you don't show up flawless, you shouldn't show up at all, and I showed up flawless. I wore an emerald green gown, satin, floor-length, sleeveless, with a high neck and a slit that said just enough. My hair had taken 3 hours and 2 professionals. My nails matched my lipstick. I felt like I belonged, like I was arriving at the level I had clawed toward for years. Dean, my boyfriend of 3 years, looked like every woman's fantasy in his midnight blue tux. Tall, clean-cut, that smile he knew could talk a client into anything. He was charismatic. He was successful. And for too long, I had convinced myself that being loved by a man like that somehow meant I had already won. How naive. He was set to give the closing toast. It was tradition. As head of strategic partnerships, he was always the one wrapping things up, thanking everyone for a great year and sending the room off with a sense of unity and optimism. But this year, he had a little joke. And before we wrap, he said, lifting his glass toward the crowd, let's hear it for my lovely girlfriend, Jade Harper, who almost landed the Alexco account. So close. Just one more meeting, maybe. Laughter. Real laughter. From senior partners. From clients. My boss actually snorted. I couldn't even move at first. My ears started ringing. I saw the way some people glanced at me, their faces half amused, half pitying. Others looked away like they felt bad, but not bad enough to say anything. I managed a tight smile. Nodded. Raised my glass in mock agreement. My skin was on fire, but I stood there and played along. That's the thing about humiliation. It's not just about what someone does to you. It's about how you're forced to pretend it didn't hurt, because if you let them see it, you lose. I didn't cry. Not there. Not in front of them. I smiled. I stayed for another 20 minutes. I mingled. I posed for photos. I shook hands with a woman from HR who called Dean a riot. And then I left through the back exit while he was still holding court at the bar. I walked barefoot through the alley behind the Andover, heels in one hand, the hem of my dress dragging through some kind of slush and probably God knows what else. I didn't care. I got in my car and just sat there in the dark, parked on a side street with tears burning hot down my cheeks. He humiliated me, but that wasn't the whole story. Not even close. What no one in that room knew was that I had landed Alexco. The deal was mine, or at least it was going to be, until Dean swooped in at the last minute, called a contact he had from a past golf tournament, and quietly pitched a different strategy behind my back. He didn't just take it. He didn't just sabotage me. He made sure I found out after it was already gone. And then he made it sound like I'd never had it in the first place. I had cried the night I learned he'd done it. Quietly. Alone in our apartment's bathroom with the door locked. I stared at the marble tile and told myself maybe it wasn't intentional. Maybe it was miscommunication. Maybe I was overreacting. God, how I wanted to believe that. But when he made that joke on stage, when he laughed about it like it was nothing, that's when I knew it wasn't an accident. He had planned this. It wasn't just betrayal. It was performance. He wanted people to laugh. He wanted me small, and that's when the shift happened. I in the silence of my car, with mascara streaked down my face and the laughter still echoing in my head, something in me went quiet. Not numb. Not broken. Still, like the deep breath before a storm. I didn't know exactly how I was going to do it yet. But I knew I wouldn't cry over this again. He thought he had crushed me in a single sentence. He had no idea what I was about to do. I met Dean Rooker at the worst possible time, and maybe that's why I fell so hard. I was 30, single, and exhausted. I'd just come out of a brutal 2-year relationship with someone who treated me like a placeholder until something shinier came along. My confidence was shot. I was working 70-hour weeks trying to prove myself in the dog-eat-dog world of corporate consulting, and my idea of a Friday night was takeout and half a bottle of cab on the couch. Then Dean showed up like a rescue fantasy in a tailored suit. He joined Greystone the same week I landed my promotion to senior account manager. We met in the elevator, literally. He held the door open, complimented my shoes, and asked if I was heading to the 10th floor too. I remember blushing, which I hadn't done in years. He had that thing. You know what I mean. Some people walk into a room and make everyone else shrink. Dean wasn't loud or arrogant. He just belonged everywhere. Tall, tan, flawless white teeth, and a voice like warm bourbon. He could talk your grandmother into refinancing her house and still have her baking cookies afterward. I should have known. But instead, I let him in. He asked me out a week later. Drinks turned into dinner. Dinner turned into let me walk you to your car, and I slept with him the 3rd time we went out, something I usually never did. But he made me feel seen. Like I wasn't just the competent, hardworking one. Like I was desirable. Worth attention. Worth effort. That's how they get you. We started officially dating. At first, it was amazing. Weekend trips to Napa. Surprise flower deliveries at my office. Thoughtful notes in my purse. He even remembered my assistant's birthday and sent her a gift card, just because. And the way he looked at me, like I was the most captivating woman in every room. I used to catch my breath when he smiled across a meeting table. It sounds dramatic, I know. But when you've spent years invisible, to men, to your company, even sometimes to yourself, that kind of attention feels like oxygen. We kept our relationship under wraps at work for the first 6 months. HR guidelines. Plus, I was nervous. I didn't want anyone thinking I was riding his coattails or getting favors. Greystone had a brutal reputation for gossip. If you so much as showed up in the same Uber twice, someone would start a rumor, but eventually, the truth slipped out. He kissed me at an off-site client mixer after one too many martinis, and that was it. We became the office's golden couple. Jade and Dean, people said, like we were one word. Smart. Attractive. Ambitious. The couple everyone secretly compared themselves to, and I leaned into it. I won't lie. I started dressing sharper. Sitting straighter in meetings. Saying we instead of I when we talked about career goals. I even started planning what our future might look like. Townhouse in Lincoln Park, weekend trips to the lake house, 2 golden retrievers and maybe, eventually, kids. It's so easy to believe the dream when someone's selling it to you with charm and champagne. But the cracks started showing after a year and a half. First, it was small things. He'd criticize my ideas in meetings, not harshly, but with these subtle, patronizing reframes. I'd suggest something, and he'd twist it, repeating it slightly differently and claiming credit. When I brought it up, he brushed it off. It's just how the game works, babe. Don't take it personally. Then it was jokes that weren't funny. Like the time we were at a client dinner, and I mentioned I was up for a leadership summit invite. He smirked and said, if they're looking for overachievers with insomnia and control issues, you're a lock. Everyone laughed, including me. But later that night, I sat in bed wondering why it stung so badly. Still, I didn't pull away. I made excuses for him. He's just under pressure. He doesn't mean it that way. I can handle it. What I couldn't admit was that I was scared of losing him. Scared that without him, I'd go back to being the woman no one noticed. That maybe, just maybe, I needed him more than he needed me. It was around this time that I got wind of the Alexco opportunity, a multi-million-dollar energy firm looking to revamp their global operations. I was tapped to lead the pitch. It was the biggest assignment of my career. I threw everything into it. Nights, weekends, extra research, mock presentations. I even skipped a friend's wedding to finish the proposal. Dean acted supportive at first. Helped me practice. Gave feedback. Made me tea while I worked late. Then, things shifted. He started getting cagey. Maybe you should rethink that angle, he'd say. Or, are you sure you're not going too hard? They're not that complicated a client. He stopped helping. Started disappearing during prep weeks. Told me he had partner meetings and mentorship stuff. At one point, he didn't come home for 2 nights in a row, said he crashed at his friend Luke's because they were working on a secret product strategy for a VIP client. I believed him. I wanted to believe him, but the weirdest part? When I finally delivered the pitch to Alexco, it went well. Really well. Their VP of Ops shook my hand, told me it was by far the most comprehensive strategy they'd seen. I went home buzzing. Giddy. I told Dean everything, and he smiled, kissed me, told me he was proud. 3 days later, I got the email. We've decided to go in another direction. Thank you for your time. I was stunned. I forwarded the note to my supervisor. She was confused too. They were basically sold, she said. I don't get it. Neither did I. Not until 2 weeks later, when I saw Dean's name on an internal distribution list for the same client. Different department. Different strategy. He'd quietly taken over the account, leveraged a connection, and rewritten the whole approach without telling me, and he got the win.my win. I confronted him. I tried to stay calm, but my hands were shaking. Why would you do that? I asked. Why didn't you tell me? He didn't even flinch. Jade, it's not personal. It's business, he said. You were great, but Alexco wanted a different style. I was just playing backup. He wasn't sorry. Not even close, and that should have been the end. But it wasn't. I stayed. I told myself it was just ambition. That he didn't mean to hurt me. That it wouldn't happen again, until the gala. Until he turned that betrayal into a punchline. Until he made sure everyone knew I failed, while grinning like a man who'd never seen consequence. That was the moment I stopped being the girlfriend. And started becoming something else entirely. I didn't sleep the night after the gala. Not even for a minute. I just lay there in our bed, while Dean snored lightly beside me, utterly unbothered. My eyes were wide open, staring at the ceiling fan spinning in lazy circles above me, and all I could think was, he's not sorry. He had made a public joke of my failure, a failure he caused. And then came home, stripped off his tux, kissed me on the forehead, and climbed into bed like nothing had happened. He didn't even notice that I didn't kiss him back. I got up at 5 a.m., showered in silence, put on my usual business armor. Charcoal slacks, white blouse, the gold hoops he once said made me look serious in a hot way, and drove to the office like it was just another Monday. It wasn't. Inside, I was unraveling. Not in a dramatic, scream and cry kind of way. No. That would have been easier, in a way. This was quieter. Deadlier. I felt cold, like every nerve had gone numb. That morning, I walked into the break room and 3 junior analysts were standing near the coffee machine, whispering. When they saw me, they fell quiet too quickly. One of them gave me an awkward smile. Another looked down at her phone like it had suddenly become fascinating. They'd heard it. The joke. The story. The new legend of Jade Harper, the woman who almost landed Alexco, and that's when I knew it was spreading. The whole company would know by the end of the week. I opened Outlook. My inbox was full, but one email stood out. Subject, quick touch base. It was from Marcus Fielding, Executive Director of Strategy. Dean's boss. I opened it, heart thudding. Hey Jade, can you swing by for a quick chat this afternoon? Nothing urgent. Just want to debrief about the Alexco handoff. Appreciate your work on this. MF. Debrief. Like I'd been dismissed from a mission. At 2:15 sharp, I walked into Marcus's office. He was reviewing something on his laptop, squinting like he couldn't quite believe what he was reading. Jade, he said, motioning for me to sit. First off, great work. I mean that. The original pitch you developed really got the client thinking. Dean's team just built off of it. Built off of it? I wanted to scream. Instead, I nodded, lips tight. Appreciate that. Marcus leaned back in his chair, clearly trying to sound diplomatic. Sometimes clients pivot last minute. You know how this game goes. It's not a reflection on you. I knew what that meant. Don't make waves. Stay quiet. Be gracious about being stepped on. He paused, watching me. Are we okay? Was that concern in his voice? Or a warning, "We're fine," I lied. I left his office and went straight to the restroom, locked myself in the farthest stall, and finally let myself breathe. I'd been erased, not just robbed of credit, replaced, and Dean had made sure everyone saw it as a joke, not a betrayal. Because if you laugh at something, it can't be that serious, right? That night, I came home late. Dean was already there, eating Thai food straight from the carton on our couch, laptop open, some game streaming on the TV. "Hey babe," he said, mouth half full. "Want pad CEW or green curry?" I stared at him. He looked up, chewing. "What?" I said nothing. Just walked into our bedroom, changed into leggings and an oversized sweatshirt, and went to bed early. I wasn't tired. I just couldn't stand to look at him anymore. I felt sick every time I did. For the next few days, I played along. Smile in the elevator. Laugh in meetings. Reply all to emails with exclamation points and thank yous. But inside, I was plotting. I started paying closer attention. Watching Dean. I noticed how often he forgot to credit people for ideas, not just me, but others. I heard how he subtly undermined coworkers with backhanded compliments. "She's good at operations, but probably not ready for client-facing." Or, "He's sharp, but not exactly executive material, you know?" People nodded along. Because Dean made it sound like he cared. Like he was being honest, not conniving. He had everyone fooled, except me. Then came the tipping point. 2 weeks after the gala, I was on a client call when my Slack pinged. It was from Samir, one of the senior analysts I'd mentored for over a year. "Hey, wanted to give you a heads up." I overheard Dean in the 12th floor lounge with a couple partners. "He's pitching himself for the open VP of strategy role. He said he rescued the Alexco deal and implied you couldn't close." My heart stopped. I read it twice. Rescued, implied you couldn't close. I was shaking. That role, VP of strategy, had been my next goal. I'd been building toward it for years. My metrics were solid. My client feedback was glowing. My boss had even hinted at putting me on the shortlist, and Dean was positioning himself as the white knight who cleaned up my mess. That's when the plan truly began to form, and it started with a single question. What if I stopped protecting him? Because I had been. Without even realizing it. I'd laughed at his jokes, smiled through the condescension, minimized my own brilliance to make him feel like the star. No more. I started documenting everything. I went back through emails, Slack messages, shared drive files, anything with a timestamp. Anything that proved Alexco had been my project. That I had built it. Crafted the proposal. Built the pitch deck. Identified the client pain points. Ran the initial meetings. I printed everything and stored it in a manila folder at home, labeled Truth. Next, I reached out quietly to Megan Yates, Alexco's director of ops, the woman I'd spent weeks building a rapport with. I asked if we could grab coffee just as a check-in. She agreed. We met at a cafe near her office, and over oat milk lattes, I said simply, "Can I ask you something honest?" "Of course," Megan said. "Why did the account get moved to Dean's team? What changed?" She hesitated. "Well," he said, "there were internal concerns about bandwidth. That your team wasn't going to be able to scale the rollout." And he presented a revised version that included some integrations we'd been wanting. I blinked. "He told you I didn't have the bandwidth?" She looked confused. "That's what I was told." I smiled politely. My heart was a storm. When I got back to my apartment that night, not our apartment, I'd quietly moved into a short-term rental 3 days earlier using my emergency savings. I knew what I had to do next. I wasn't going to confront Dean. Not yet. I was going to expose him, but not in a dramatic way. No screaming. No scandals. This was going to be quiet. Clean. Surgical. And by the time it was over, he wouldn't just lose me. He'd lose everything. There's something strange that happens when you finally stop trying to convince someone to see your worth. A kind of peace. A cold, clear silence that settles over your thoughts like snow on a dead city. It doesn't make the pain go away, it just makes it quieter. Manageable. Calculated. That's where I was. Not heartbroken. Not even angry, really. Just done. The day I walked out of our shared apartment for good, Dean didn't even notice. That says everything, doesn't it? He was on a conference call in the living room, laughing and pacing in his usual self-important way, throwing words like synergy and pipeline around like they meant something. I walked past him carrying 2 suitcases and a duffel bag, my heels clicking on the hardwood floor, and he just raised a finger in that wait 1 second gesture. I didn't wait. I walked out the door and didn't look back. I had spent the previous week making quiet moves. Found a furnished short-term rental near the lake. Called my bank and transferred joint savings into my personal account, my portion only, down to the cent changed my passwords. Cancelled our shared wine subscription. Left a polite message with the leasing office saying I'd be off the lease at month's end, and just like that, I was gone. He texted later that night. Dean, hey babe. You leave your curling iron. Dean, wait. Did you take your laptop charger? Dean, where are you? I didn't reply. The next morning, I woke up in a bed that wasn't ours, under a white down comforter that didn't smell like him, and for the first time in a long time, I felt, like myself, lonely? Sure, but not lost. At the office, I kept my head down. I wasn't ready for the fireworks, not yet. I needed to be precise. Everything Dean had ever done, he did with plausible deniability. No paper trail. No hard proof. Just charm and spin. That's why my plan had to be airtight, and it started with rebuilding what he'd tried to erase, my professional credibility. Step 1, take back Alexco. Not literally, the deal was done. But the narrative? That was still up for grabs. I booked a one-on-one lunch with Claire Langston, the senior VP who had final say over the Alexco pitch outcome. She was no nonsense. Barely smiled. I respected the hell out of her. We met at a sushi spot near the office. Over edamame and tuna rolls, I looked her straight in the eye and said, Claire, I just wanted to clarify something. About the Alexco transfer. She raised an eyebrow. Clarify. I want to make sure you know it was originally my account. I ran point on the pitch for 6 weeks. I developed the deck, led the discovery meetings, built the proposal. Dean came in later. Claire sipped her tea. That's not how it was presented. I know, I said quietly. That's why I'm saying this now. She studied me. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm applying for VP of Strategy, I said. And I won't let my name be associated with failure I didn't cause or success I wasn't credited for. For a moment, she said nothing. Then, noted. That's all, but I saw something shift in her eyes. After that, I began the second step of my plan, observation. Quietly. Carefully. I started noticing inconsistencies in Dean's work. Missed deadlines. Overpromises to clients. Vague updates in team meetings. I knew the pattern. It was all sizzle, no steak. He was slipping. And no one was looking, except me. I began keeping a private file. Dean's deals. Every time someone mentioned a concern, missed follow-up, confusing strategy docs, duplicate messaging to clients, I made a note. I wasn't hunting. I wasn't even asking. I just listened. Compiled. Meanwhile, Dean was thriving. At least publicly. He was nominated for a company award. Smiling in hallway conversations. Giving mentoring tips to fresh grads like he invented the idea of confidence. But the mask had tiny cracks. I saw him snap at an analyst when a report wasn't done. I caught him fudging a client number in a presentation. And once, when he thought no one was around, I heard him curse under his breath because his Outlook calendar didn't sync correctly and he missed a lunch with a partner. He was unraveling slowly. But enough. Still, I hadn't reached my breaking point yet. Not until that day, the day Dean submitted his official application for VP of Strategy and used my Alexco deck as a case study to demonstrate his leadership. It landed on the shared internal portal. Greystone's version of LinkedIn for employees, where applicants posted a public-facing pitch. I clicked it out of curiosity, and there it was. My slides. My design. My notes. My words, only his name on the title page. I stared at the screen for a full 2 minutes, breath caught in my chest. That was it. That was the final, irreparable tear. I downloaded a copy. Took screenshots. Saved the metadata. Then I opened my manila folder, the one labeled truth, and started drafting a memo. It wasn't angry. It wasn't dramatic. It was clinical. Evidence-based. Titled, Subject, Formal Discrepancy Review, VP Application, Dean Rooker. I attached timestamps. email trails, meeting invites, side-by-side deck comparisons, Slack messages where I had shared early drafts, a link to the project timeline, a note from Megan at Alexco thanking me for my work before the transition, and then I hit send.tohr.to Claire.to Marcus, and to the executive leadership team.my hands were steady when I clicked the button. My heart was still. I wasn't blowing up his life. I was just letting the truth breathe. The fallout started within 24 hours. First came the HR inquiry. Quiet. Formal. The kind of thing that makes people's smiles freeze when they pass you in the hallway. Then came the partner meetings. I wasn't invited, but word spread fast. People were asking questions. And Dean? Dean stopped smiling. He stopped laughing in the break room. Stopped mentoring new hires. Stopped winking across the boardroom at anyone. He started sweating. I passed him in the hall one afternoon, first time since I left, and he said, "Jade, we need to talk." I looked him dead in the eyes and said, "No, Dean. You need to talk to HR." He went pale, and I kept walking. That was my breaking point, but not my collapse. It was my ignition. It's funny how quickly power shifts in an office, especially when you stop pretending you don't want it. Once I sent that memo, everything changed. Not loudly. Not all at once. But like a quiet leak under floorboards, slow, steady, impossible to ignore once you notice it. That was the effect. The hallway glances. The whispered questions. The sudden way people stopped laughing so loudly when Dean walked by. He felt it too. The Monday after my email, he showed up in a navy three-piece suit like he was about to pitch Wall Street itself. His hair was overly gelled, his smile forced. He looked desperate, but still smug. Like he thought maybe charm could plug the cracks. It couldn't. Because what I had done wasn't just accuse him. I had exposed a pattern, and in a place like Greystone, where performance is everything and perception is king, once your image fractures, the sharks come circling. I didn't gloat. I didn't brag. I didn't say a word, actually. I let the work speak, and meanwhile I kept moving. Step 1. I started rebuilding my network, not just socially, but strategically. Every connection I'd neglected while Dean was shining in the spotlight, I rekindled it. Quiet coffee chats, lunches, DMs. I reached out to everyone I'd ever mentored or helped, checked in, asked about their projects, offered support. They responded. People remembered who I was, what I'd done, what I was capable of. It turns out, people like rooting for someone who's been underestimated, especially when she doesn't play the victim. Step 2. I applied, officially, for the VP of Strategy role. My application wasn't flashy. It was precise. My case study? A different account. One Dean hadn't touched. I chose Ashbourne Tech, a mid-sized client I'd quietly grown by 300% in less than a year. No drama. No headlines. Just results. I included a link to a case portal I created with real-time dashboards, testimonials, strategy trees, performance metrics, a self-guided breakdown of how we scaled them from regional chaos to national efficiency. It wasn't loud. It was irrefutable, and unlike Dean's application, which had mysteriously disappeared from the portal after HR's inquiry, mine stayed up. Within days, I got the interview request. One-on-one with Claire Langston. No panel. Just her. I arrived 10 minutes early. Claire didn't waste time. "Jade, you know why I brought you in." I nodded. She leaned back, hands folded. "Your memo was thorough." "I don't believe in throwing punches without a clean case," I said calmly. Claire studied me for a moment, then tilted her head. "Do you want this job because you deserve it? Or because you want to beat him?" I smiled. "Can't it be both?" That made her laugh. "Well," she said, "he's on leave, pending a formal review. Your name's clean. But I want to know, what's your actual vision? Not the metrics. Not the pretty charts. What do you want to do with this team?" I didn't blink. I'd rehearsed this answer 100 times in my head. I want to rebuild our trust equity. Internally and externally. Greystone's bleeding talent because we keep rewarding loud mediocrity and overlooking quiet excellence. I want to change that. She nodded. Slowly. "You mean people like you?" "No," I said. "I mean people better than me. The ones who don't have the energy to play the game while doing the work. She leaned forward. That's a strong answer. I'm tired of being quiet, Claire. So stop being quiet. And just like that, I knew. She was on my side. After that, the pace picked up. I was invited to strategy sessions I'd previously been excluded from. Sat in on high-level briefings. Got CC'd on threads that used to skip my name. It was subtle, but real, and all the while, Dean stayed gone. No calls. No texts. No, hey babe, let's talk messages. Just silence, except one thing. He showed up at my building. It was 2 weeks after his leave started. I was walking home after yoga, hair in a messy bun, still in leggings and a tank, holding a smoothie like I had a damn clue what peace looked like. He was leaning against the brick wall next to my entrance, arms crossed, wearing his favorite leather jacket. The one he used to say made him look sexually threatening in a legal way. I stopped. Cold, seriously? I said, can we talk? No, Jade, come on. What do you want, Dean? To apologize? To explain? To tell me how I misunderstood your betrayal? He looked pained, like it actually hurt him to hear the truth out loud. Good, I messed up, he said. Okay. I got greedy. I didn't think it would blow up like this. I laughed, bitter. You didn't think? Or you didn't care? I didn't realize what I was doing to you until it was too late. No, Dean, I said. You realized. You just didn't think I'd ever do anything about it. His jaw clenched. I thought we were a team, he said. Quieter now. We were, I said. Until you started stealing my wins and calling it teamwork. Silence. Then he said, they're going to fire me. I shrugged. That's not my fault. He stepped closer. I didn't flinch. You're really going to just let this happen? I didn't let anything happen, Dean. You did. I just stopped cleaning up your mess. He looked like he might cry. I walked past him, typed in the code, and held the door open for exactly 1 second before letting it close behind me. That was the last time I saw him. 2 weeks later, HR issued a formal statement. After internal review, Dean Rooker has chosen to part ways with Greystone Consulting to pursue other opportunities. We all knew what that meant. He was done, and me, I was promoted the next day. The first week after Dean was officially gone, Greystone felt different, lighter. People walked through the halls with a strange new energy. Like a weight had been lifted, but no one wanted to say it out loud. There was a shift, not in policy, not in structure, but in posture. In breath. Like a toxic fog had finally cleared and everyone could finally breathe without inhaling someone else's ego. It should have felt like victory, but it didn't. Not fully, because now the spotlight was on me, really on me. And attention, I'd learned, was a double-edged sword. Half the firm looked at me like I was a survivor. The other half looked at me like I was a threat. The whispers started on day 3. She only got the promotion because she took Dean down. I heard she had a folder, like she planned it for months. Smart move, honestly. Cold, but smart. I'd catch pieces in elevators. See side eyes in team briefings. Feel the tension at the end of emails that ended with thanks instead of thanks. It was subtle, but steady. I wasn't Jade who works hard anymore. I was Jade who plays chess with people's reputations. Never mind that Dean deserved every consequence. Never mind that I'd done everything by the book. No smear campaign, no rumors, no HR drama beyond facts. The story people believed was simpler. She ended him, and maybe, to some, that made me dangerous. Claire Langston called it growing pains. You're disrupting the hierarchy, she said one morning as we drank coffee in her corner office. I thought that was the point of hiring me. It is. But don't be surprised if the old guard pushes back. The old guard. That was the perfect phrase. The men who'd been there for 10+ years. The women who'd learned to survive by staying pleasant but forgettable. The mid-level managers who smiled wide and said all the right things, but secretly held their power like pearls clutched in white-knuckled fists. They didn't like new rules, and I was rewriting them in real time. I didn't shrink. I made myself bigger. I started every meeting 5 minutes early. Stated my expectations clearly. If someone tried to hijack a conversation or derail a pitch, I brought it back without apology. I followed up with summaries, action items, and timelines, efficient, direct, unflinching. The effect was immediate. Some people respected me more. Some people hated my guts. But what mattered was this. People listened. The deals started landing fast. My first month as VP, we closed 2 new clients. A third followed soon after. A legacy firm that had ghosted us for 2 quarters suddenly reappeared and signed a 6-month retainer after a single call. My team was working like a machine. Lean, sharp, focused, and then came the sabotage. It started small. A client file went missing. A critical attachment mysteriously didn't upload to our server before a briefing. I didn't panic. Mistakes happen. Tech fails. But then it happened again and again, always my team. Always high stakes. Always when I wasn't in the room. I started triple-checking everything. Backing up files to external drives. Printing hard copies just in case. Then came the anonymous email. It landed in my inbox at 2:13 a.m. one night from no reply at GreystonExchange.net. Subject: just so you know, attached was a screen recording of a Slack conversation. Not from my workspace, from someone else's. I recognized the names instantly. 2 colleagues from another department. One of them had typed, "Let's see how Golden Girl handles this one when she walks into the meeting without a plan." The other replied, "Already moved the files from the drive. She'll figure it out when it's too late." My stomach dropped. The files they were referencing? A new expansion proposal for our biggest account, Madeira Corp. We were pitching a service model they hadn't seen before. I was presenting it Thursday. That Thursday. I leaned back in my chair, heart racing. Not from fear. From fury. Someone inside Greystone was actively trying to make me fall. This wasn't office politics anymore. This was war. I took screenshots. Saved the recording. Traced the metadata as best I could. And then I did what Dean never expected. I built a team. I started with Eric Chin, the IT analyst who'd helped me during the Ashbourne transition. Brilliant, loyal, underappreciated. Want to be part of a cleanup crew? I asked him quietly, for you? Always. Next came Lydia from HR, new, sharp, tired of being ignored in meetings. I pulled her into a data culture initiative, but really, I wanted her eyes on Slack logs and access permissions. Think of it as restoring digital hygiene, I told her. She smiled. You mean rooting out petty snakes? That too. I didn't out the saboteurs, not yet. I didn't march into HR or slam laptop shut in public. I did something worse. I prepared. I rewrote the Madeira Corp pitch from scratch in a single weekend. Burned the midnight oil. Designed it with fail-safes, copies on every drive, hard prints, emailed to 3 dummy accounts, and saved under a decoy name. And when Thursday came, I walked into that meeting like nothing was wrong. Let them think I was unarmed. Let them wait for me to fail. I opened the deck, hit full screen, and delivered the best damn pitch I'd ever given. The room was still when I finished. Madeira Corp's COO blinked twice, then said, "That was excellent." Like, genuinely impressive. The smiles around the table weren't just polite. They were earned. I walked out without a word to the people who'd tried to burn me. Later that day, Claire called me. Madeira Corp just signed a 1-year consulting agreement. I heard, I said. Also, IT flagged suspicious file behavior. 2 employees were copying internal files to personal drives. Let me guess, I said. Names start with D and T? You want to press charges? I paused. The old me would have said no. Too messy. Too harsh. Be the bigger person. But the new me? I smiled. No. I want you to fire them. Quietly. No announcement. No warnings. Let them log in Monday and see the door locked. Done. And that was it. The last resistance crumbled. I wasn't just someone who survived Dean anymore. I was something else entirely. Untouchable. It started with a headline. I was at my desk, sipping cold brew and skimming through the morning alerts like I always did, a ritual that kept me 5 steps ahead of every client and 10 ahead of my competitors. But that day, the top article in the Industry Moves newsletter hit like a car crash in slow motion. Former Greystone exec joins competitor to head Strategic Innovation Division. Dean Rooker. My throat went dry. I clicked the article. It was short. 3 paragraphs, mostly fluff, about how he was bringing his years of experience to Stratagem Partners, one of our biggest rivals. They even used that stupid picture of him in a tux, the one taken at the very gala where he humiliated me. The article said he was known for innovative approaches to client acquisition and would be spearheading expansion efforts across the firm's Western portfolio. I stared at it for a solid minute. He wasn't just surviving. He was rebounding. Publicly, quiet firing or not, Dean had landed on his feet. Stratagem wasn't just a competitor. They were our competitor. Our biggest one in the West. Our fiercest. I knew half their team. We'd been stealing deals from each other for years. And now they'd hired him. I should have been panicked, but I wasn't. Not this time. I leaned back in my chair and whispered, "So that's your move." "Okay. Let's play." Then, I kept reading, and one line in particular made my blood thrum with anticipation. His first major initiative will include a multi-phase bid for the upcoming TerraView merger. That stopped me cold, because I knew something Dean didn't. Greystone had just been given an exclusive early access window on the TerraView merger. The CEO, Lila Reynolds, was an old contact of mine, someone I'd built trust with for years through small contracts and consistent delivery. We'd signed the NDA last Friday. I was personally overseeing the proposal. Dean wasn't just chasing a deal, he was chasing mine, and he didn't know he was walking into a trap. That afternoon, I called Lila. "I assume you saw the article," she said as soon as she picked up. I did. "Looks like your ex is trying to poach my business." I smiled. "And you're not surprised?" "Not even a little." "You want to meet next week?" "No. I want to meet tomorrow." "You free for lunch?" "I'll bring the pitch." The next day, I walked into the kind of boardroom that makes people straighten their backs and tuck their insecurities under their blazers. TerraView's headquarters was all steel and glass and quiet confidence. Lila was waiting for me, dressed in tailored navy, her silver-streaked hair pulled into a perfect chignon. "I'm assuming you're here to make sure I don't get seduced by Dean Rooker's charm." "I'm here to make sure your board gets numbers, not noise." I opened my laptop, slid it across the table, and let her watch point. 15 minutes later, she looked up and said, "You're 10 steps ahead of what Stratagem proposed last quarter." "I know. I haven't even told them the terms yet. They're going to try to mimic you. I'm going to build something that scales with you." She studied me. "Did he really steal your work?" "Yes. And you still won't speak badly about him." "I don't need to. He's writing his own story." Lila sat back and smiled. "And you? What story are you writing?" "The one where I never play small again." She nodded. "I'll call legal. Let's get the contract started." That was the twist Dean never saw coming. Not that I survived his sabotage, not that I beat him to VP, not even that I exposed his lies and kept my hands clean. It was this. He thought I was playing defense. But I'd been building an empire the whole time. TerraView signed a 14-month consulting contract within the week. It was the largest single-client deal I'd ever closed, and one of the biggest in Greystone history. When the news went public, Stratagem's stock dipped slightly. Industry chatter shifted. Suddenly, it wasn't "look at Dean Rooker's comeback," it was "why couldn't Stratagem close TerraView?" Inside our office, the energy flipped again. The whispers stopped. The side eyes faded. I became something else entirely, not feared, respected. But the twist wasn't done. A week after the TerraView deal went public, I got an email from someone I never expected. Subject, "Off the record?" From Anonymous at protonmail.com. "You don't know me directly, but I used to work with Dean at Stratagem. You should know he's been saying some things. He's framing you as manipulative. Says you seduced leadership into protecting you. That you fabricated the Alexco sabotage. That you're dangerous. He's building a narrative. Trying to poison the well. Just thought you should know. He won't stop. He's coming for your reputation next." For a moment, I just sat there, reading it over and over. I wasn't surprised. Not really, because men like Dean don't stop when they're caught. They regroup. They rebrand. They find new mirrors to admire themselves in and new stories to tell about the people who made them feel small. But I wasn't going to play defense this time. I was going to finish what I started. I forwarded the email to Claire. She called me 10 minutes later. "You want to sue?" "No. You want me to call his CEO?" "No." She paused. "Then what?" "I want access to our media consultant. I want a feature." "On what?" "Me." She laughed. You sure you're ready for that level of visibility? I smiled. I'm already visible. Might as well own the spotlight. 2 weeks later, the Women in Leadership series on businessfocus.com ran a full feature on me. Full photo spread. Deep dive on my approach to strategy. Highlights from the TerraView deal. A quote from Lila about my integrity, not a single mention of Dean. That was the final twist. He wanted to be remembered for stealing a spotlight. I would be remembered for outlasting it. Some consequences come like explosions, sudden, loud, impossible to ignore, but others, they unfold like rust. Quiet, relentless, inevitable. That's how Dean's downfall finally happened. It didn't come from a lawsuit, or an arrest, or some public scandal. There was no dramatic takedown or office screaming match. No revenge speech. No viral thread exposing everything, just a slow, steady erosion of reputation. A man who built his career on perception suddenly found himself trapped under the weight of reality. It started with whispers, the same way his rise had. People inside Stratagem began asking questions. Questions like, why did we lose the TerraView deal? Didn't Dean say he had that connection locked? Why are 2 of his other accounts underperforming? Why haven't we seen numbers matching his pitch metrics? He'd overpromised. Again, but this time, there was no woman beside him cleaning up the fallout. He was on his own. And charm only goes so far when the deliverables don't land. I didn't need to lift a finger, just wait. Stratagem's COO reached out to Claire about a month after the Business Focus article went live. It was worded like a casual check-in. But the subtext was clear. What exactly happened at Greystone? Claire didn't answer. Not directly, she didn't have to, because by then, the industry already knew, and what they knew was this. Dean Rooker left Greystone quietly, without promotion, under suspicious circumstances. Jade Harper stayed, rose, and delivered the most successful year to date in the company's last decade. People don't remember gossip, they remember numbers, and mine were undeniable. By Q4, we'd broken 3 internal records: client retention, net revenue per team, and cross-department collaboration score. My photo was hanging in the lobby by year-end. Not because I asked for it, but because the company did. HR said it was part of a new campaign, Inspire Upward. They called it. I just called it poetic, but not everything was smooth. Because while Dean was fading from the headlines, the emotional shrapnel he left behind still lived in me. Some nights I'd find myself staring at my apartment ceiling at 2 a.m., my body perfectly still, but my mind wide awake. How did I not see it sooner? Why did I defend him for so long? Was I really that blind? Or just desperate to believe I wasn't? There's no timeline for healing when your self-worth has been filtered through someone else's ego for years. Even after the fallout, the empty space he left wasn't relief. It was a wound I had to clean alone. I started therapy again. I told my therapist the truth, all of it, how I ignored the signs. How I laughed at the insults dressed as jokes. How I bent my schedule, my dreams, my voice to fit next to his. How I thought love meant shrinking to make someone else shine. She didn't judge me, she just listened. Then she asked one question I'll never forget. What would it look like to love someone who doesn't require your silence? That question haunted me for weeks, because I didn't have an answer, not yet. The fallout at Greystone wasn't just about Dean. It was about me stepping into something I'd avoided for years. Power, and power, I was learning, is lonely. Not because people hate you, though some might. Not because it changes who you are, though it will, a little, but because it forces you to see everything clearly. Especially yourself. People I used to call friends at work stopped inviting me to happy hour. Not out of spite, just distance. Your leadership now, someone said once, shrugging, like that explained everything. Maybe it did. I stopped apologizing for it, but I started protecting my peace. I created rituals. Morning runs by the lake. Weekly dinners with the few people who really saw me, not the title, not the headlines. Me. I read more. I wrote again. I said no more, and slowly, that wound started to close. Not because I got revenge, but because I reclaimed my own damn story. That's the thing people forget about fallout. It doesn't just destroy what's broken. It clears the space to build something new. One afternoon, 6 months after TerraView signed with us, I got a call from Lila Reynolds. Got a question for you, she said. Shoot. What would it take to get you to jump ship and build our internal strategy department? I laughed. That's not subtle. I'm not a subtle woman. I noticed. She paused. I'm serious, Jade. I'm honored, I said. But I'm not finished where I am yet. She didn't sound surprised. When you are, call me. I hung up smiling, not because I wanted to leave, but because I had options, because I wasn't anyone's fallback anymore. 2 weeks later, I found out Dean had been quietly let go from Stratagem. Officially, they said, he was pursuing other opportunities, but I knew the truth. He'd run out of mirrors. His LinkedIn went quiet. His phone number stopped working. His name slowly stopped coming up in meetings. Eventually, even the whispers died. That was the real ending, not with a bang. Not with a breakdown, just silence. And in that silence, I found something better than revenge. I found freedom. There's a moment in healing, and you don't always realize you've crossed into it, when the anger finally lets go of you, not because you forgive. Not because you forget, but because you simply don't need the fire anymore. That's where I am now. It's been almost a year since the night Dean Rooker made me a punchline at a corporate gala. 10 months since I walked away from the man I thought would be my forever. 8 since I watched his career quietly crumble under the weight of his own ego, and 6 since I stopped waiting for an apology that was never coming. I don't think about him every day anymore. When I do, it's not in rage. It's not even sadness. It's like remembering a song I used to love that now sounds hollow. I don't regret falling for him. I regret how much I gave up trying to keep him. There's a difference. I still live in the same apartment I moved into after I left. It's not fancy, 2 bedrooms, white walls, hardwood floors, but it's mine. There's no shared closet. No debate over where the furniture should go. No toothbrush in the wrong cup. Just quiet. Control. Peace. I painted one wall navy, bought a big oak desk, and turned the second bedroom into a writing room. Not an office, a writing room. Because somewhere in the fallout, I remembered that I used to love writing, before consulting consumed me, before every hour had to be billable, before Dean. Now I spend one night a week unplugged, no screens, no emails, just me, my notebook, a glass of red wine, and a playlist I've titled Reclaiming Jade. Sometimes I write about work. Sometimes I write about nothing. Sometimes I just write about what it means to breathe again. Professionally, things have never been better. Greystone renewed my contract for another 2 years. My team has grown from 5 to 14. We just landed another long-term client, and our department's been asked to lead a cross-firm mentorship program. People don't call me cold anymore. They call me clear. I like that. I like being the woman who walks into meetings with facts, not favors. With evidence, not ego. I still get the occasional look, the one that says, she's intense. She's ambitious. She's not afraid to take space, and every time I smile, because for so long, I was afraid of being too much. Too serious. Too strong. Too loud. Too proud. Now I realize, the only people who say that are the ones who wanted me small. I'm not small anymore. A few months ago, I ran into Dean's sister, Allison, at a networking brunch. It was a weird coincidence. She spotted me near the mimosa bar, walked over, and gave me that tight-lipped smile women give each other when we're bracing for something awkward. I wasn't sure if I should say hi. She admitted. It's fine, I said. We're not the ones with unfinished business. She looked relieved. Then curious. You look good. I am good, I said. Thanks. There was a beat of silence, then she said, he's in Austin now. Trying to start something new. Of course he is. He said he's doing consulting again. But, smaller. Solo. I nodded. I don't know why I'm telling you this, she said, flustered. It's okay. I guess I always knew something was off. But I didn't know how off until everything happened. I didn't reply. There was nothing to say. She reached for her purse. Anyway, you look happy. I am, I said. And meant it. That night, I walked home in the rain without an umbrella, my heels clicking on the wet pavement, mascara probably smudged, and I smiled the whole way, because that used to be the kind of encounter that would spin me out for days. Seeing someone from the past. Getting news about him. Revisiting the wound. But now? It barely registered. It was just a fact. Dean Rooker existed. He played a part in my story, but he no longer gets to narrate it. What gets me now, what still hits me out of nowhere, isn't anger or grief. It's pride. Pride in the version of myself that got out, that woke up, that didn't let humiliation become a lifelong identity. Pride that I didn't settle for being the woman behind the man, that I became the woman without him. I still remember the worst moment, the gala. His voice in that mic. The laughter. My frozen smile. The red-hot shame curling around my lungs like smoke. But now I see it differently. That wasn't the moment I broke. That was the moment I burned the old version of myself down, and what rose from it. That's been worth every bruise. I've learned so much since then. I've learned that sometimes the biggest betrayals come wrapped in compliments. That love without respect is just manipulation dressed in roses. That gaslighting doesn't always look like screaming sometimes. It looks like being told you're overreacting while someone steals credit for your work. I've learned that boundaries are not negotiations. They're fences. And mine are solid now. I've learned that being underestimated is exhausting, but also a gift, because it means they never see you coming. I've learned that revenge doesn't always look like destroying someone. Sometimes it's just becoming so successful that their name no longer matters in your mouth. And most importantly, I've learned that healing isn't linear, it's messy. It's full of relapses and late-night questions and moments where you doubt the version of you that fought for herself. But you keep going anyway. That's power. I know there are people who still think I was too harsh, too ruthless, too calculating. Let them, because the people who matter, the ones in my corner now, know the truth. They know I didn't start a war. I ended one. Quietly, cleanly, strategically, and I walked away whole. This is not a story about a breakup. It's a story about reclamation. It's about the version of myself I almost left behind, the one who knew her worth before he made her question it. She's back now. She drinks black coffee. She walks into rooms like they were designed for her. She signs contracts with a pen that used to scribble, maybe someday. She doesn't flinch when people say her name with either praise or envy. She's not scared anymore. She's home. And if someone ever tries to humiliate her again, they'll learn exactly what Dean did. That I don't scream. I don't beg. I don't break. I rebuild. And when I'm done, there's no seat left for them at my table, only silence and power.